Morning. Sorry, a couple of minutes late starting today. Hello. Thank you so much for joining. Massively appreciated. And today, as you can see, to my right or left, depending on which way the screen's orientated, absolute pleasure to be joined by Luann Wise again. Welcome, Luann. Good morning.
Good morning, Anthony. Thank you for coming back. It's great fun session. So looking forward to today.
Amazing. So if anyone's joined one of these before, you'll know that there's a lot to cover, and we'll try and aim to have all of the bulk of this done by in the kind of next 45 minutes, so we can give time for Q&A. Fire in any questions into the chat, and thank you for using the chat as well. So it's great to get those conversations flowing. Loads of people have registered for today, so thank you. So this is actually going to be the last one this year, because there's not that much that happens in December in the world of social, so we can all actually take a step back and go, wow, right, can we try and figure out what's happened over the course of this year? Because it's been a mad year. So this is going to be the final one for 2020, but loads to share over the course of November. It's been a really interesting one in terms of new trends and changes, etc. So let's get started with the presentation, shall we? So let's go into it. Hopefully you can all see this. So
important questions come up already though, Andy. Are you going to play the drums for us today?
We might do a December special edition where I can maybe I can do one of these roundouts through the means of music or something. Either way, I'm going to spare you that today.
Okay, cool.
Dignity. Anyway, Luann, do you want to give a quick intro for yourself actually before we get going?
Yeah, I know there's some familiar names coming up here, so this is great that people come back and see it. So hello to people that we've met before. If you don't know, I'm a marketer, have been in marketing for 20 years, worked agency side, worked client side, run my own consultancy business now, have a lovely mix of working directly with clients, doing teaching and training work as well. I guess if I had specialisms, it would be the world of B2B marketing, and of course a deep dive into social media, because I am proud to work directly with LinkedIn as one of their online learning course instructors and an accredited trainer for Facebook and Instagram as well. So anything B2B marketing, anything social media.
Love it, and absolute pleasure to have you on. And I'll spare you the intro for me, because most of you probably know me and you've seen my waffle before. So I'm one of the founding team of ContentCal. This is what ContentCal looks like. We're 4 years old, used by 42,000 businesses, 140 odd countries. So if anyone doesn't know ContentCal, perfect tool to organize your content planning, certainly when we start to build our content strategies into next year. So if you want to try this, there's discounts available because of Black Friday and all that kind of stuff. But that's it as far as ContentCal goes. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some digital trends, and we've got more of this month than we've had in previous months. And to be fair, this is actually one of my favorite bits. So I think I actually put this stat on last month, but I think it's worthy to have on again, because it's just such a powerful statistic, and it frames all of the changes so wonderfully well, of 1 in 4 purchases being influenced by social. And you're gonna see how this evolves over some of the more detailed statistics that we'll go through. So a load, if you haven't seen these before, load of different research goes into these, and essentially I kind of curate all of this together. So this is all third-party research. So talking about 1 in 4 purchases are influenced by social and the power that social is having, this statistic really starts to help identify where that shift is happening. So brand research in the age of social, and this data shows the percentage of global internet users who mainly use the following when looking for more information about brands. Essentially, let's call this product discovery. And the bit I want to focus on here is search engines and social networks. And the bit that I really want to highlight is actually Generation Z, so slightly younger generation that's coming to the fore. As you can see, discovery of new products is actually now split evenly between search engines and social networks, whereas it typically used to skew more towards search engines. So that's actually starting to think, or help us think, actually, we potentially, if we're too SEO focused about where we're going to appear in our search rankings, we might be missing a trick, because where people discover things on social for the first time is starting to become more prevalent. So what are your thoughts on that, Luann?
I think I love these stats, Andy. that we work through. And I thought I'd recap on this because I'm a bit of a geek and like to go and look this out. That Gen Zers are the ones that born between 97 and 2012. So, you know, they're just coming into this world of shopping and buying, and they're most likely the children of millennials, which I fit into. And I think it's really interesting. And I think this year and changing behaviours even more so have just shown that we find things because we're just spending our time scrolling, which is why the mobile stats are quite high as well. You know, we just spend our time, we're filling our time, you know, we can't do anything else right now. So we are scrolling. And I think that is where we're discovering new things, we're getting inspired, we're buying things. You know, we've only been able to buy really online in the last couple of weeks, last month anyway. So this is just hugely important and shows the power of social media in terms of how people find out about things and where they go and where traffic comes from.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the consumer reviews is a really interesting part of this, because it just shows where people are getting influenced by and by whom is absolutely shifting. So those trusted resources, whether it's Trustpilot or whomever, actually, you know, do you trust Booking.com or Amazon ratings, or do you actually trust a holiday influencer on Instagram? And that's definitely shifting.
And I think it's the visual appeal, isn't it? You know, it's not just reading the reviews. It's absolutely, you know, who's wearing what, who's buying what, you know, and the visuals on Instagram is all about, you know, how do these products look in your home, and how do people, you know, the feelings that they give as well. So I think all of this together is just hugely important.
Agreed. So, right, this was some research, and there's 3 slides of this. I know, Luann, you're going to be all over this from a B2B perspective. This is your thing. So I saw this from the B2B Marketing Institute, which is part of LinkedIn. And I think this is just such a brilliant lesson for us all as marketers, especially framed in the context of what we're talking about, social media marketing, is that, you know, I'll give it a bit of a preface, Luann, and I'm handing one over to you, because this is you all day long, this is. So the thing that LinkedIn have been noticing is that far too often budgets are shifting towards an activation side of marketing. So activation is kind of your short-term kind of ad orientated spend. So things where you want to get a direct conversion. Let's say it's a holiday season, you want to run some social ads to get people to buy things. So what LinkedIn have been noticing is that far too much proportion of budgets are shifting towards these short-term effects, which are really easily to be attributed to certain things, and more money goes there. But unfortunately, as you can see from the statistic here, is that whilst it gives you kind of short-term peaks in immediate revenue growth or whatever growth you're looking for, it doesn't have the same brand effects over long term. So it doesn't actually sustain growth of your brand over a longer period. And there's a couple of slides on this, but yeah, Luann, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, if anyone is in the world of B2B, then do check out the B2B Institute. They've got some great research in there. They've got some great people that are associated with it. This research comes from as well Binnett and Field, who are just, you know, the gods of marketing effectiveness in this world, writing reports. And these stats have been around for a long time. They're not anything new, but I think they've come more to the foreground this year as, you know, whatever plans we wrote for marketing this time last year just got thrown out the window in March. And because we've had so much uncertainty of, you know, will this end? Will we go back? What's the new normal? And we haven't been able to kind of find this new ground yet. We still don't know when it's going to be here. Maybe it'll be Easter next year. We still don't quite know. But the challenge has always been thinking short term and doing tactical stuff for quick wins today and tomorrow versus this longer term vision. And there's challenges around this, because the way most organizations work is that they have sales targets and forecasts, which are very monthly focused. So therefore you're always trying to achieve the win for today. Longer term is harder, takes more time, perhaps harder to manage and measure as well, the long-term effects. But absolutely all the advice that was coming out, you know, several months ago was, you know, we're heading into a recession. What happened in the last recession? What should marketers be doing? And the thing was to focus on your brand. Build your brand for the long term. Even if people weren't able to buy from you right now, because of various factors. They will remember you, recall you, have trust, advocacy. So you've got to be focusing on the brand and the long term. And I know there's some more slides on this, but it's absolutely the reputation and loyalty that we need to be focusing on now. I do think the top of the funnel stuff is harder during lockdown, during the recession. And, you know, it's always easier to sell more to existing people and to your existing contacts. So we've got to focus on them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And talking about this building the brand, I mean, what does that actually mean? And I think this slide really segments this. There's just one more slide on this particular segment, but I think it's worthwhile kind of bringing up, is that the activation is all about your in-market buyers, focusing on a rational message, narrower targeting, and as you precisely say, Luann, sales metrics are the most important measure here. So ultimately, you know, buy this, discount 20% off, buy this by this date, etc. So that will get a result, and that absolutely needs to be part of a strategy. But unfortunately, because it becomes so easy to demonstrate that, to say we put in, you know, £5 and we get a £10 return, because it's easy to attribute, that misses out on the longer term reach, which is around your brand or marketing to out of market buyers, people that will buy you in the future. And that's the thing that builds brand over the long term. And that's where social is incredibly powerful for it. Emotional message, which is about like why you do what you do, the purpose behind, you know, your objective, your brand, focusing on delivering things like the memory metrics. And actually last month, picking up on the memory metrics, we spoke about the growth of kind of nostalgia orientated marketing, harking people back to their times, their youth, and connecting people with that. And that's become such an effective marketing tactic. Well, it always has been, to be honest. And broader targeting is such an important part of this, because if you want to build a brand over long term, you need to go much broader with it. So and that's where social is really powerful for achieving reach and new eyeballs on your brand and your content over a longer period. So anything to add to that one, Luann?
Yeah, the really interesting bits that jump out to me in this, and something that I've been working on in other studies, is this rational and emotional thing. And considering this is a B2B piece of research, people's gut feel is usually that B2B buying is very rational. You know, we need this, we're going to buy this. But actually it is hugely emotional buying for a business or on behalf of a business. There is more people impacted by your decision. You know, there's also that, you know, depending on the scale of the purchase, there's fear around getting it wrong as well. You know, have I chosen the wrong software? Have I chosen the wrong tools? Have I bought the wrong things or selected the wrong supplier? So we shouldn't miss out the importance of emotion in any sort of buying, but particularly in B2B as well, which comes onto some slides later, it's all around this trust, it's influence, it's the referrals, the recommendations, it's the long-term message. But, you know, we're people and we're still buying from people. So that emotional connection is actually hugely, hugely important. Yeah,
100%. And here's the data at the end of it. So we'll go over this slide, but ultimately this was the bit of research from LinkedIn, is that when LinkedIn took an example where they marketed to an area where they're not very well known as a business, and they were targeting people with just acquisition orientated messaging. And then they took that same sample data and then targeted people with brand orientated messaging first, like why we do what we do, why we exist, that kind of thing. And then began to target them with more acquisitional focused marketing at the end of that. And as you can see, because there was more of a connection with a brand in the second example, we can see the conversion rate goes from 0.2% to 1.2%. So that was the kind of data point that LinkedIn wanted to back up. And this was part of like LinkedIn's own research that came out, I think it was last month actually. So really, really useful, this one, and just puts the data behind the theory that we've just been speaking about.
Yeah, and Ella said in the comments, hopefully these findings will convince more businesses about the place of social media in their marketing. If you need to convince anyone, get your stats straight from B2B Institute and show the stats, show the research. For me, that's usually what gets the buy-in, along with examples of what other people are doing. And B2B's, you know, playbooks, LinkedIn's playbooks are full of this stuff.
Absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't agree with that statement anymore. Businesses are still woefully behind the curve when it comes to social media marketing. There's so much potential out there. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, before I get on my soapbox and wax on about that for the next 15 minutes, let's move on.
Keeps us in the job.
Exactly, yeah. So how is consumption evolving? Right, so they're the kind of trends we've seen. Now consumption, a lot of shifts in consumption. Hopefully you can see that slide. It's a little bit small, but every month we try and show some latest data related to the growth of particular platforms. This one's actually really useful. This came from a report from a company called We Are Social. And the interesting finding here is that what we're looking at, this percentage that you see relates to the percentage of global internet users outside of China. So that's a really important thing, because a lot of the data includes like WeChat and Weibo and all that kind of stuff. So for ones where people on this call really can do something with, this is a really important metric. So 85% of global internet users outside of China use Facebook, obviously massive. 77% of them are regular monthly visitors or users, once again, absolutely massive. YouTube, once again, really stands out for me here, because not only do we have 82% of the global internet users outside of China using YouTube on a regular basis, we actually have more people using it than our members. And I think that's fascinating. And then what we actually can see from this data is that YouTube actually has a higher usage rate than Facebook. So as far as the biggest social platform goes, outside of China, the data is telling us that's actually YouTube. So I think that was actually a fascinating finding. And actually looking at, and just calling out another thing, looking at one of Luann and my favorite networks, LinkedIn, you can see that they're getting better, but they still struggle a little bit for a number of people that are on the platform versus the number of users. So yeah, interesting finding that one. What do you think, Luann?
I think, well, there's a point around LinkedIn there, is that I think, you know, despite it being one of the oldest social media platforms, it still has a very big perception of just being for finding a job. So, you know, people tend to visit it when they're looking for a job and then forget that actually it can be an amazing tool for the day to day. I guess it is a bit more niche, in fact, that it is, you know, mainly B2B, and it's not an advertising platform as much as the other tools. So, you know, but I'd rather have a smaller number of users that are good and engaging than thousands of people that are just kind of chucking mud at a wall. So for me, it's about the quality when you're on the platform. The big stat that stood out for me, I know it's hard for people to read on the screen, but the difference between members and users, it's very close on Instagram. Yeah. All the other platforms have quite a lot of members, but not regular users, whereas Instagram is very close, which I think says a lot about Instagram and how engaging it is, and that people perhaps understand it and have a bit more clarity on the purpose of Instagram.
Indeed, yeah, definitely agree with that one. And yes, this is some more statistics on this one, but to cut through, I won't read out all the stats on the slide, and these slides will be shared with everyone after this call as well, just in case you need to know. But I want to kind of draw up your attention to the bottom of this, where it's about younger consumers are watching virtual events via the following. And what kind of interested me, this is the percentage of US and UK Generation Zs, again, and millennials, who've watched a live stream virtual event on the following in the past 2 months. And to be fair, that actually makes me think that I'm probably missing a trick with this one, really, because we're just using this on a webcasting platform rather than streaming this to YouTube or Facebook Live, for example. But what we're starting to see is a really interesting uptick in the appetite for people consuming longer form video content on their native social platform. So that's a really interesting shift. And it just goes to show, for when we're considering our kind of large scale communications like we're doing right now for going into next year, not just thinking, oh, are we going to do this on Zoom or Demio or whatever platform is your choice, thinking about those other platforms that we can bring onto it, because that allows us to open up to a different and new audience. So yeah, that's my takeaway from this one. But it just shows video across all platforms continues to grow. We say it every year, but 2020 has really kind of borne that out, that's for sure.
Yeah, people, you know, love video content. You know, this kind of shows it. But I think you've still got to be very clear on your purpose of what you want to achieve before you choose the way that you're going to do it. So, you know, we've clearly chosen that we're going to do this to a closed group so that we can have the chat, you know, and not joking aside, you know, we've got the email addresses of people that have registered and can communicate with afterwards. And you don't get that if you go live on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. So I would always start with your objectives and what you're trying to achieve with video, then choose the best way to do it. And of course, you know, people are already asking, is the recording available afterwards? Yes, it will be publicly available afterwards, but people can't interact afterwards and ask questions. So it's about deciding how video is going to work best for you. But absolutely, you know, people love live, and, you know, you've got to promote the live and engage with the live. I find like this, live is much easier to do than pre-recorded, because we just have to go for it. If we were pre-recording this, we'd probably have goodness knows how many takes, because we'd get distracted and you know, oh, that wasn't quite right. So, you know, I think live has a certain authenticity to it as well.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely agree. So let's talk about some trends. Once again, this is from We Are Social report, and I think there was 4 things that they called out, and this was their kind of 2020 summary report, and there was a load of waffle in it, as most reports have. But there were 4 key trends after spending an hour pouring through the data. 4 key trends that really jumped out to me that I think we could probably do something with. So 4 of these trends that potentially could then build into our 2021 plan. Number 1, purpose-led brands. I think we've spoken about this quite regularly on these catch-ups, but 83% of people globally feel that brands should be using their social channels to create a sense of community and support, right? That screenshots Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand Prime Minister, actually streaming on Twitch, just as a bit of an example. But it goes to show that when we are on social as brands, for us to generate mass appeal, making sure that we're not silent on matters that we either believe are important or are important in general to have a voice on. But I think the interesting thing here is that because this is actually a really challenging ask of brands, right, to start speaking up on certain matters, be it mental health, be it Black Lives Matter, whereby if you don't feel like you have the level of education to speak on the subject, what this example shows is that quite often brands have been turning over their social channels to others that do have education on the matter to speak to that. And I think that's a really interesting perspective, because it works well in a number of ways. It helps you support a cause that you genuinely believe is valuable, because it has to be authentic, clearly. And it also raises people's awareness of the topic at hand and your perspective, or yours or whoever you're working with, perspective on the matter. It's a difficult one, absolutely very challenging one to have a voice, because there is absolutely always reputational risk, even when it comes with the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Tricky one, I reckon.
It is a really tricky one. And I think, you know, without getting into the big topics, because I'm not an expert on these areas, I think for me, Black Lives Matter's really highlighted this year, in that, you know, Blackout Tuesday, you know, people started posting, and then brands got challenged on it, because there's this whole balance between jumping on the bandwagon and getting involved in a key date or an awareness thing, and then being able to back it up. And what we saw on that Tuesday, I think it was July, I don't even know what month we're in, that brands were getting called out for kind of talking about it when their business couldn't back it up and add substance to it. So it's got to be part of the entire business and your values and the way you think, live, sleep and breathe, for it to be believable and credible. And, you know, and the fact that this stat comes from the Trust Barometer, Edelman Research, again, is a great source. You know, they're always updating this. It can't just be a social media post to say that you're supporting something. It's got to have the support behind it. Then it will be credible, and then people will see it for genuinely what it is. And it's hard. It's hard to pick your subjects. It's hard to pick your causes, but it's absolutely people want to know what you stand for and what you believe in. 100%,
really well said. The Simple Life. I like this one because I much got into gardening over the last year because I don't have much else to do. And it just goes to show it's a kind of softer, lighter side of social. Like this profile called Garden Marcus, 7 million likes on TikTok, about growing roses, life in the garden, how the garden bloomed over several months. And it goes to show that actually, you know, social content doesn't need to be very complex, doesn't need to be overly thought out. It's just real, genuine, someone sharing their genuine interest. And if you're passionate about a certain subject matter, other people become passionate about that too. Of course, there's the overlap between what you're interested in and what's, you know, what your brand stands for and what will drive results. Of course, there's a bit of a Venn diagram there, but you know, in these examples, it just goes to show that we've spoken about this trend before about people going to social for escapism, and this perfectly demonstrates that point, because there's nothing more simple, a simple pleasure than actually spending time with nature. So yeah, I quite like this one actually.
I work with a B2C client in the, you know, the cleaning, household cleaning products. You know, before I started working with them, you know, it's not really my area to be posting pictures of me washing up or cleaning the bathroom or things like that. But, you know, this community led by some, you know, big influencers is huge. And research into it and looking into it is that part of it is kind of validation that it's okay to love cleaning and the feeling that it gives you when your house is clean, that you can feel relaxed. And I think that people share this stuff on social media because it's their world and they're looking for people similar to them to share this with. And particularly when we haven't been able to do that any other way this year, social media, you know, and for company, you know, our user generated content is amazing. We don't, you know, we just can use everything and reshare stories from people using the products. People just want to share what they're doing and how they're living and see that other people are doing this too.
Yeah, love it. It's a great example actually.
Right.
So trust over influence. This kind of talks a little bit to the purpose-led brands, and it overlaps with that. But a great example of, like, you know, influencers. Whilst you have influence, which means you have an audience, trustworthiness is another thing. And that's become, it's always been a trend, if you want to call it that, but people are just very much more cognizant of this now. The age of trustworthiness. And a great example is Selena Gomez turning over her account to Brittany Packett Cunningham, who could speak to the audience on the Black Lives Matter movement, because Selena, by her own admission, didn't feel that she had enough background of understanding to communicate what needed to be communicated with. So she's using the influential power of her audience, but demonstrating trustworthiness in that kind of open style. And to be fair, this is a very similar example as to Jacinda, New Zealand Prime Minister, of, you know, just being open and just having that dialogue and allowing to take questions live. And it really is that age of trust. And I think there's a lot that B2B brands can learn about this approach. Whilst it might seem kind of distant and like drenched in celebrity culture, it's not really, because the moment that B2B brands start understanding that social media is personal, you can start to realize that there is a lot more potential out there.
I think it's all about credibility, isn't it? And, you know, it's about walking the walk and showing that consistently. It's not one-off posts. This is what we do. This is what we stand for. It's got to be credible. There's got to be a story behind it. You know, if you're trying to demonstrate expertise, you've got to show case studies and who you've worked for and everything else, which comes back to the earlier slide of that long-term thinking and not the short-term tactics. I think B2B brands can do this. I think the challenge that it has, perhaps more than anything, is that it tends to be slower and take more sign off, and social media with things like this requires a bit more in the moment to get involved and to be more agile with your conversations. And B2B marketers aren't always quite that ready to dive into those kind of in the moment conversations.
That is true. That is very true.
Politically correct answer.
Yeah. Well, the last one is creative collaboration. We can all learn from this, and it's a hugely underutilized tactic when it comes to social. So whilst this example is from Dua Lipa, not my personal musical style, but I'm led to believe quite famous. So essentially what Dua Lipa did was ask her followers to collaborate with her on a music video. So many submissions, as you can expect, because it's Dua Lipa and she's a superstar. But ultimately, the opportunity here in creative collaboration actually is, even if it's something as as trivial as doing some B2B market research. Asking people to contribute and co-create with you is a really fantastic way of marketing and collaborating with people, because the more people you collaborate with, the more people start sharing you on social. And a great example of this, well, an example of this is what we did with our Content Cal Academy. We co-created it because no one wants to hear just from us, and we don't have all the right answers. And it's, marketing's all about different perspectives. So all of the courses we ran on our academy were co-created with industry experts. And that kind of thing gives those industry experts a platform, and people love to help. People love to share their knowledge, their hard-earned knowledge, and the more that you co-create with people, the more people are invested in it, and the more people want to share it. So it's hugely underutilized. And I think if there was a real big takeaway going into 2021, I would say collaboration is one of your most important and powerful tools that you can use going into next year as to how you can get your content marketing out to more and a broader audience, I would say.
It's what we're doing right now, isn't it, as an example? And I think it's about collaborating with the right people that you align, which comes back to the kind of the trust and the values and beliefs as well. But absolutely, but sometimes it just shares the load, doesn't it? And gives you those mixed opinions and, as you said, gets the broader reach. So yeah, I'd love to see that as a growing trend.
Exactly. So yeah, in this collaboration, sorry, Luann, you're not really working with Dua Lipa here, but there we go. Well, we try.
We haven't heard the drums yet. We don't know.
Love it. Okay, cool. I think this is the last one before we go into the specific updates. Actually, there's only about 10 minutes worth of that. So trends that are going to continue into 21, because we're talking about, we're in the midst of like planning phase into next year. We've spoken about lives, and we've spoken about video. Instagram live usage, it's gone up 70% this year. And they've actually, to that point, they've made some updates to live that we're going to go into. So very much video is going to continue into next year. In-app shopping trending on Instagram. I speak about this every month. I speak about it all the time. Social commerce is going to be one of the key underlining trends of 2021. And one of the big latest updates to Instagram basically just set out their stall for exactly what they're going to be doing next year, which is fascinating. Facebook Live back in favor. So that's an interesting increase from Facebook Live, to be honest with you. And, whilst I'll be giving loads of statistics here, I don't expect anyone to be across all platforms, because we're absolutely not. But it just gives you good context as to the kind of things that you can be doing. But ultimately, live video consumption, that's going to continue. Shopping is very much going to continue, and that's going to be one of the biggest themes. And the bit that I think is, it's uncomfortable for myself as well, which is the AR ecosystem on Facebook. So many people have created augmented reality effects using Spark AR. And whilst that is kind of historically has been the preserve of people that are very competent with the technology, that's getting more accessible for, layman's like myself and others on the call, for example, that might not have the natural expertise in this, but it's getting much easier to start creating augmented effects. And that's going to be one of the underlining trends of the future of content. And it's going to raise the creative bar, that's for sure. But, it's one of those things that's going to emerge into 2021. We're not all going to be using augmented reality. It's one of those things, it's one of those trends that we've spoken about for 10 plus years, but it's taken a long time. But with the advent of 5G, we'd be foolish not to predict that that's going to start garnering more and more attention going into 2021.
It's hard to predict anything, isn't it? But, you're right. And I think I read someone's post on, I don't know which platform it was yesterday, about the role of a marketer and how job specs now include graphic design and video creation and things like that. And the job spec of a marketer is just getting wider and wider in terms of the skill set. And I genuinely don't think we can be expected to be the greatest strategists, copywriters, graphic designers, video creators, script writers, and all of this. So all these tools are available, but again, I think it's about skill sets and probably collaboration as well.
Yeah, that's where it absolutely comes to the fore, because you can never be an expert in all of this. But I think that's actually a really nice way to kind of conclude this segment, is that collaboration piece, is because it's not just about collaborating with people to co-create content together, like the example you gave, collaborating with people that understand technology, if the application's right, working with those individuals, and collaborating with people that, we don't need to be an expert in Facebook Live, but if someone is really big that has a similar audience to you, that spends a lot of time live streaming on Facebook, then work with them. You'll find a mutual understanding as to the kind of quid pro quo or value exchange that you can offer that individual. And I think that's where the skill sets of just being able to nurture those relationships are going to be really powerful into 21.
And I think there's a danger of anyone trying to spread their skills too widely and not doing anything great. And there is the tools available, but you can't expect to be a great writer and a great designer. They're different parts of the brain. So I would say, don't try and do everything, even though all of these tools and opportunities are available.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. So, right, well, let's get into it. There's some platforms that have a huge amount of updates, and some of them that absolutely don't. Facebook is one of those being very quiet. They're kind of a bit busy with the election stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
It would keep you busy. But I think this is a really interesting statistic. This is from Facebook directly. This shows you monthly active users in each of the locations across the world. Interestingly, Facebook have lost market share in the US. It's still absolutely massive, 255 million. It's the dark one in Q3. So as a result of the election, some disgruntled Trump followers leaving. And Europe, surprisingly big, but it continues, growth is steadying, that's for sure. But it's still continuing. I would say they're definitely hitting a bit of a plateau in terms of monthly active users. But, let's not forget, there's 2.7 billion of them. So it's massive. But the thing that was surprising for me is how big. I appreciate Asia Pacific is a big area, but how much of the demographic of Facebook that makes up, I was really surprised to see, to be honest. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that before we move on the line.
I think it'd be interesting to be able to break this down and look at the monthly active users and what they've been doing differently over time, because I'm sure when we all started on Facebook, it was much more about your news feed and your friends and family and what they were doing and liking that. Whereas, particularly as for it's more now about groups and lives and other conversations. So if we were to kind of break down that active users and what they were doing, I think that would show some really interesting trends, because for me, it's not so much about what friends are doing now. It's much more about going into groups, having conversations, having those communities, and things like that. Again, it's about finding value in the platform and what it can do for you, and quality over the big numbers.
Definitely, yeah. I would say my usage is exclusively groups now. Yeah. Cool. So Instagram busy November. Busy November. So a new content format is coming to Instagram, and I really like this one. So it hasn't been rolled out to me yet, so I don't know if anyone else has this yet. But when you go onto your profile, in the middle, you should see a guide section. Essentially, guides is long form content on Instagram. They started testing this back in May, and they were testing this in the context of mental wellness. So Headspace, I think the meditation app, started running guides as one of their first tests. And it was really good because you could scroll through their 10 practical steps to understand what you can do with, mental wellness and meditation and all that kind of stuff. So that was really good because it allows you to go really deep on a subject. And for me personally, I get a bit tired of Instagram because it's too snackable, and I don't engage in the content. That's why I spend more time on LinkedIn, because it's more in depth. I like to kind of go away from a social platform having learned something. And that kind of stuff, this guides really allows you to go deep into a subject. So I think it's a really good positive step, actually. Fascinated to see that. Think of it as as a collection of blog posts together, kind of. So yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this, Joanne.
I haven't seen them, but from what I read about it, it kind of feels like it's a bit of a kind of more of a Pinterest magazine style way of curation, and obviously they're picking out their picks to do the guides on first. So wellbeing was a clear winner on that. So it'll be interesting to see how they roll out. But you're right, it's about finding the ones that are relevant to you and stopping the scroll. And it's harder as a marketing consultant to use Instagram for my business. Behind the scenes does work, but for example, my husband's a photographer, so Instagram is perfect for him. I have a couple of e-commerce businesses. It's perfect for e-commerce because of the shopping. It's about finding where Instagram works, isn't it, and what how it can work for you, and the balance between those platforms. So as a B2B, LinkedIn priority, but a photographer, Instagram priority.
Indeed. So this one, I mean, there's not much to say in terms of new feature, but you'll all see this when you go into Instagram, and you'll see the statement of intent, which is clear as day. Reels, slap bang in the middle. Reels is going to be so significant. All of the effort's going to go in there. As a result, we're going to see reduced exposure of our organic content on our newsfeed. Reels is going to continue to take that space. Reels also is going to intersect very nicely with shop. So yeah, indeed. So lots going to be happening there. But yeah, as you can see on the the immediate right of Reels, which is as you see front and center in the screen here, on the right hand side of that is shop. I've been saying it for about a year now, but Instagram is going to be turning into an e-commerce first app. And this is where kind of social discovery and purchasing behavior absolutely meet. This really is a perfect manifestation of what we showed on our very first slide. 1 in 4 purchases, influenced by social, and how the new generation are discovering things of influence and then making their purchasing decisions off the back of being influenced by certain individuals.
And I think the shopping is interesting as well, because it's that whole beauty of media about leveling the playing field as well, that you can find your individual makers creating things as well as your big retailers, and discover things. And with the current feelings towards shopping local and shopping independent, I think being able to discover those makers, those small shops, those small gift retailers on Instagram is great, is brilliant.
Yeah.
The challenge with the home screen changes, I don't know about you, but I've got access to several different accounts, and some of them have updated and some haven't, even within the same app. And it's like, which one am I on? Where do I go on this one? So hopefully it will settle down. But I know that some people aren't quite so much of a fan of the home screen change immediately. But people don't like change, do they? You get used to where things are, and then one morning you open it and it's like, it's moved.
It is the only constant of social, that is for sure. It's going to continually change, but I think this is just a very clear expectation of where stuff's going to go. So I'm gonna blast through some of the next ones, because I'm just conscious of time to make sure we've got time for questions. So new shopping advertising options. This came out towards the end of October, but I want to put this on again because this is important for us to know going into holiday season, especially Black Friday and such coming this weekend. Anyway, so shopping advertising options basically means you can now start doing product tags through your paid for content. Historically, you could only do this on your organic content. So that allows you to tag products, so it takes people directly through to that page to shop those particular products. And shopping engagement custom audiences is a new option on Business Manager, which allows you to target and retarget people based on actions that they've taken. So like they clicked on something but didn't convert. So being able to retarget based on that. So perfect activation type of scenario stuff that's great for the holiday season. This is a quick one, more of a kind of FYI, increase in time limit for Instagram Live. It used to be limited to 60 minutes and now it's up to 4 hours. This is as a result that there's been lots of changing of different use cases of Instagram Live, not just kind of webinar formats like we're doing now, but people streaming their music concerts, streaming DJ sets, all of this kind of stuff. So now Instagram Live is opening that up. And as we see, 70% increase in utilization of Instagram Live just goes to show that's working really well. And also, as you can see here, they're improving the archive of that, so we can kind of save those in our Instagram TV account, so we can start to organize all of our lives. Because one of the challenges about lives is like they're kind of one and done. Instagram TV actually helps you organize historic things that you've done, because if they've got value over time. Branded content tags for Reels. So this was a brand new update that came out yesterday. So this allows you now to start running sponsored content. So these branded content tags have been about in other formats, but now they're available in Reels. This once again talks to the whole point about Reels and the whole content and commerce and the influencers and that kind of thing. And it talks to the power of collaboration, working with those people that have the right audience, being able to run these branded partnerships with them. And this is where immediately Instagram are ahead of TikTok in this regard. Yeah, they're still behind in functionality from the kind of content format perspective, but they're ahead in terms of ways that people can monetize that content. So moving on, and actually this falls into this really nicely as well. Collaboration with creators on branded content gets easier. So what do we mean by this? So this, historically, if you were going to work in partnership with a creator, let's say you found someone, say you're a yoga instructor and you found someone that's a yoga influencer, for example, what if you wanted to run kind of branded sponsorship? Let's say you're kind of you do clothing for yoga instructors or whatever. As you see, it's a stretched and bad example, but god damn, I'll really take myself a bit of a rabbit hole on this one. But imagine that you've got some collaboration and some content that you could share. So you find these people that have produced the content already. Historically, you could only run a sponsored ad if that content had been posted organically first. Now you can co-create this together. So that's going to make the whole process of content creation for the pieces of content that you create in partnership with others much easier, because that doesn't have to have been posted organically before you can sponsor it. Hopefully it made sense. What a wordy explanation that was. So next one, so as you can tell, Instagram have been very busy.
Wow.
Keyword search coming to Instagram. I absolutely love this. Historically, historically you can only find content if it's been associated to a certain hashtag, but now you can find stuff based on keywords, which is going to be brilliant for finding any user-generated content. Maybe people have mentioned your brand, maybe people have mentioned your product. Fantastic to amplify that, to reshare it, and a great way, once again, that you can potentially find new people to collaborate with. If you're finding lots of people talking about, I don't know, baking or something like that, and you run a bakery, another fantastic way in which you can reach out to those individuals and see whether there might be mutual overlap where you can work together. All falls part of this whole kind of partnership type of collaborative approach that we've been talking about throughout the course of this.
It's really found its space, hasn't it, Instagram? It's really kind of finding its USP and what's different about it. It's not just, bits of other things now. It's kind of feels like it's growing up. Yeah,
I really, really think that too, actually. How they've really understood how people discover new products, how people get influence and how people want to buy things. Super powerful.
Yeah.
Right. People can have a break from my voice because this is your one.
LinkedIn, again, they've done a redesign. This rolled out over, it's kind of always quite interesting if you suddenly see loads of people go, oh, it looks different today, and then you don't hear anything, and then 4 weeks later, everyone's going, oh, it looks different today. They have been rolling out a major redesign, which basically made it look a bit more like the other platforms. They got rid of the blue, and it's a bit white and grey. I didn't see huge amounts of different functionality. It was mainly a design change, but of course we have seen new features which we talked about last month of stories on the mobile app, a few new features, but it looks a bit different, a little bit clunky in terms of functionality, as LinkedIn can be. You need to kind of find workarounds, but considering most of us don't pay for it, with what we get out of it, I think we just have to overlook the clunkiness of some rollouts. Yeah, next slide. As I said earlier, LinkedIn does have this huge perception still of being a job site. We are in a world of many people looking for new jobs right now, so LinkedIn are doing everything they can to support job seekers, people looking to recruit, with insights, more information to help you just expand what you're looking for and find more opportunities. I know it does throw up some strange suggestions sometimes of, here's a job for you, and it's nowhere near what your skill set is, but they are trying really hard to support the job seekers And there's some great insights in there. So if you are in that space, dive into their career path and the jobs section.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good update, that one, actually.
Yeah.
Do you want to take this one as well?
Yeah, Twitter. Oh, Fleets. Has anyone seen this? It's stories for Twitter. I think mine appeared on Saturday. You know, suddenly you've got all the circles along the top of your app. Quite interestingly, they launched it, then they had to throttle back on it because they were getting too much demand. Then there were some tech issues reported that the fleets weren't actually disappearing. I'm challenged by this in the same way as LinkedIn Stories, that it's only on the mobile app. And now it feels that I have to do half my work on the desktop, which is my personal preference, and then pick up my phone to do some other things, which is a bit harder, and not always on my phone so much now that not leaving the house. Fleets, what I've seen is people like us, Andy, that are just testing things at the moment and seeing what's happening. Seen some memes around, do we need stories on every platform? You know, it was unique to one platform and now it's kind of everywhere. My advice with new changes that come out is, and it's really hard as a marketer, you go, oh, shiny, new thing, I'm going to try it. Think about first, do you need to do it? Test it and see what other people are doing. You don't have to be the first one in. Even as, you know, this is our world, we don't have to be the first one in. I'm very much one for watching and seeing what other people are doing, and finding a place for it if it's relevant. Otherwise, it's a bit like all those skills I mentioned earlier. We're just going to overwhelm ourselves and try and do too much and not sleep at night. If it's new, know about it, park it, watch it, and incorporate it when the time is right. I always prefer to go with idea first and then tactic on whether it's a story or a video or a live or, you know, a graphic or a meme, rather than fleets is out, how am I going to use them? That's kind of the wrong way around for me. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, being idea led makes a lot of sense. So let's touch on that last couple. Conscious of time on this one. So WhatsApp, don't really talk about this in social content, and some people will be like, is it really a social platform? But for businesses, it very much is, actually. So for the way that people can interact with a business is actually incredibly powerful. So in this example, where someone's interacting with Sandra's Cakes, checking whether something's available, and then being able to look at the inventory and make a purchase directly through that. So for WhatsApp for Business is going to be incredibly powerful, actually. So a really interesting thing to be aware of if you're running an e-commerce business. Pinterest, just a point to note that Pinterest is actually quarter on quarter the fastest growing social media platform. Gets very little headlines because it does things in its kind of nice own ethical way, which I really loved. I had a load of really nice, exciting updates. But just goes to show that Pinterest is having a fantastic time of it at the moment. And once again, as we've been speaking about e-commerce, you know, this whole kind of being able to explore and being able to curate all of your content around your shops as well. So if you have a certain collection of a certain range of clothing or a range of whatever product it is, typically it's going to be one that lend itself to being more visually appealing, as we know. But being able to curate those and organize those around your shop and allowing people to purchase directly through the app as well. Pinterest are, you know, further ahead than Facebook Shop in rolling this out, actually. So definitely something to be aware of, I would say. And this is certainly things you need to investigate for your 2021 plan, because making it really simple, if you are an e-commerce orientated business, making it simple for people to buy from you in multiple different locations is a very sensible thing to do and have on your plan for 21. TikTok, so this is the last one, integration with Shopify, starting to move towards e-commerce. Whilst these kind of product tags are similar to what we saw in Instagram, for example, they're a little bit behind in the sense that this is integrated with Shopify to actually make that happen. But if you do run your site on Shopify and you have your online shop built on Shopify, it now has become much easier for you to integrate that with your TikTok content to allow people to go straight through onto your site, have that in their basket, whatever they're choosing to buy, and then make that purchase. So it's not like the utopia of where social channels want it to become, which is look at a piece of content, go, oh, that looks great, purchase without leaving the app and continue scrolling on. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. And TikTok have made supporting charities easier. a brilliant step from them, actually. So you can now designate a certain charity that you're supporting if you're active on TikTok, and encourage people to donate. So as you can see under Matt Navarra here in this example, we can see supporting comic relief. So anyone that follows him can see the cause that Matt is supporting and make any associated donations to that. So fantastic for the charity sector, which has been really hard hit over the course of 2020. So that takes us to the end. We just about made it in time. So we have some time for questions, but these slides and the recordings can be sent out to everyone. A bit of summary, really. We haven't spoken about groups because there were no updates at Facebook, but Luann touched on this. Facebook groups is going to continue to grow. Loads of updates have come over the course of 2020. So groups are going to be critical into 2020 if you feel like there is a community that can be built around your business. Instagram's all about e-commerce, and expect to get sick of more and more reels updates coming, because that's going to be the thing. LinkedIn will be pushing stories more. It's been a bit of a kind of like a bit of a launch, and then not much, but there'll be lots coming to stories, especially when they allow you to add links to other things in stories, which has been mooted to come at some point this year. Who knows? But that will push that out. Twitter, just one to watch. If you don't have an account on Twitter, now's not the time to do it. But I'm interested to see if fleets can kind of increase the engagement, because Twitter saw a spike in engagement throughout the whole period of the election. But once that calms down now, or not quite now, but hopefully soon, that fleets, will that give it the shot on the arm it needs? So who knows? And once again, e-commerce for TikTok. Right, that is us.
I love the way we say, "Oh, it'll be 30 minutes and then questions."
Yeah. I really shouldn't. I shouldn't even try and put a time limit because there's just so much to go through to give it some detail. So you're always welcome to get in touch with Luann. Giving out your email address here, as you're always really helpful. Like I said, we've got some discounts running on Content Cal. Feel free to drop me a note if that looks of interest. Drop a note to Luann and us on social as well if you found this session useful. And you've got my email address there as well. So if there are any specific questions as well that you haven't had a chance to ask on Q&A, that you just have some questions going into next year, questions around anything to do with social, Luann and I are always happy to answer them.
Yeah, and the chat, I've been watching the chat as well as listening to you, Andy. The chat has been great today to see you all interacting and answering each other's questions and support and connecting. So there hasn't really been any questions in there, but it's been great to see that alongside that you're all interacting and supporting each other as well. So it feels too early to say Happy Christmas, but it is our last one of the year, isn't it? So
it is. Maybe we'll do a bonus joking at the end of the year. Who knows? But we'll see. But for the real detailed ones, I think that's enough. And of course, there's all of the previous ones as well, that if you want to kind of revisit some of the other updates from this year, you're always welcome to, because they're all on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I hope this has been valuable for those. We really enjoy doing them. Luann, thank you for making these such fun to do.
Thank you. Collaboration is much more fun.
Indeed it is. Indeed. So with that, have a lovely rest of the day, and thank you everyone so much for taking the time to join and listen. And I'll speak to you all very soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.